Welcome to the Relentless Road Podcast. Welcome to episode number 50 of the Relentless Road Podcast. It is February the 16th, 2018. We're on the backside of February already. Joined once again by Ryan McDonald.
Hey.
We've got Jennifer here in flannel because it is February. Of course, it could be July, and she would have her.
It was 77 degrees yesterday.
Yesterday was nice and warm, and today, and I knew what the weather was going to do, but I saw sunshine, and I've got not enough clothes on.
Here in North Texas, by the way.
Yes, not enough clothes on. The wind is like 180 miles an hour, and cold, like it's coming straight off of the North Pole or something. It's not bueno. So 2 days ago was Valentine's Day. Jen, did you take your Valentine out?
No.
No?
No.
Did you do anything?
He cooked dinner.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why is it such a sexist holiday? Why is the idea that the male is supposed to do something for the female on Valentine's Day?
I don't know.
I got a gift.
Yeah, I got him a gift too.
But but you didn't cook him dinner.
I know, because I cook dinner every night.
Okay, so
it
then
was like
it's
a nice treat for him to do it instead.
It's like a role reversal.
Right.
And I won't chase that down any further. So Mac, what did you get?
I got a hatchet.
A hatchet.
Yes, I thought that was an awesome Valentine's Day gift.
It is, but isn't there movies like that? The Valentine's Day Hatchet Massacre.
That was pretty cool.
So a hatchet, and Jen, you got dinner. Did you get chocolates or anything?
I got flowers.
Flowers?
Mm-hmm.
Chocolates, Mac?
Chocolates. She got a bunch of flowers from a work thing a couple days ago. She brought it in the house, and Matthew and I our eyes swelled shut. And
from the flowers?
From the flowers. I don't know if it's this kind of flower, so we were done with flowers for a while.
So do her coworkers like her? I mean, did they sabotage the flowers? And were they trying to?
This was a big bouquet. It was.
Okay, so it wasn't. Maybe they were trying to sabotage with some sort of.
I spent a lot of money to sabotage. If that's what it was.
Well, if you're going to sabotage, I'm sure it's not cheap. So did you eat the chocolate?
No.
Oh, well, you said chocolate.
No, I gave it to her.
Oh, okay. You sabotaged your wife.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that makes sense. No, my wife, kids, everybody. There's like chocolate all over my house, and I don't have a sweet tooth except for like a Hershey's chocolate or the Kisses. And so I'm going to need to do some weekend detox here. I've been trying to run and get some extra sweat.
Mine are the Kisses with the caramel in the middle.
Mm.
You ever had those?
Aren't those the Hugs? Is that the Hugs?
I don't know.
Or what are the Hugs? The Hugs are some.
The white chocolate is good too.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, well, there's not many left in my house, but that's because they've been frequent in and around, or even post. I think yesterday morning I made my kale shake and all my good healthy stuff, but the chocolate was sitting within eyesight.
Doesn't make up for it, I found out.
No, yeah, they need to hide the stuff. Today is my son's birthday. He is 14 today.
That makes you old.
No, I was like 12 when I helped my wife conceive him. So I'll be hitting 30 here in a couple of years. Me and him are going to go back to college together. So yeah, it's 14. So what? 2 years, a year from. Do they still do driver's permits?
I don't know.
Is that still a thing? I mean, that used to always be the deal, right?
I
At
think
15, you got a learner's permit, and then at 16, you was able to get a license.
Yeah.
Because y'all are going to be crossing this here pretty quick, right, Jen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So your son will turn 15 in another.
I'm thinking that Elena's gonna actually probably drive before him. Though he doesn't seem to. I mean, he doesn't really seem to have a huge interest. So I don't know. I want him to, so he can.
Mac, did you know anybody
around.
that didn't have any interest in driving?
Mm-mm.
See, I would hear of kids like that, but I couldn't. I couldn't comprehend it because I was.
Me either. I was driving in New Mexico. We could get our license at 15, and I had mine when I turned 15.
I mean, you got in your car to go see somebody. All you got to do is flip open your computer, click on.
Well, I guess, yeah. Nobody has to physically. They don't have to open up the computer. It's on their phone. They're hanging out
or whatever.
They're together all the time. So I guess that kind of changes the dynamic. Now, before we came on air here, we was just scattershooting, talking about some different things. And Jennifer, you had mentioned something that I don't know that we've addressed recently on the show, but I think it's good to bring up. And you said that you have the habit of jumping on the scale every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you had inferred that doesn't always work out well for you. Walk us through
terrible. Like, I wish I didn't do that. I've tried not to.
I got an idea.
What?
Now, mine is more, there's not a scale in my house that can weigh me. So that's how I get away from weighing every day. But you could get rid of the scale.
I know, and I have. I've gotten rid of scales, and then I went out and bought a new scale like a week later. I feel like that is the accountability. I don't know, and people have different opinions. You hear some people say that is the way to go, is to weigh every single day, and then some people say it isn't. And I beat myself up about my weight every day. So I know it's dumb.
I'm gonna
I
do
didn't say
something.
that.
I'm gonna do something every day that makes me miserable.
I know.
I mean, I'm a big believer in what gets measured gets managed. I'm
There,
particularly with women. I've always, over the years, tried to get them to like once a week, and then be consistent within the settings. Because y'all's body does all kinds of funky things, and water retention and what a specific thing you had brought up, and what I wanted to really touch on was the idea that you may have a day where you feel like, man, I rocked. I did everything perfect. I ran 400 miles, ate nothing but spinach, and the next day the scale.
Yeah, I can be up 5 pounds in one day.
Yeah, but then the flip side is, and so then it's demoralizing. Why the hell am I doing all this?
Right.
But then what I've also seen is that let's say you go out, y'all have a few drinks, and the next morning, and because you're dehydrated, the scale may show that you've lost a couple pounds, and then you look in the mirror, and then you know what?
I got to drink to lose weight.
And then you're justified. You're drinking.
you justify the leash to go ahead and cheat more. Well, if I cheated and it didn't matter, so therefore. And it's more about the overall continuum over, consistency of time of 5 to 7 day chunks. And as long as you can do it without being miserable.
So if I did, should I get rid of a scale completely or?
Well, what you just said, was that I try not to, but I can't help it.
It's just, it's right there in my bathroom when I
Hey,
get up
put
in
it
the
up here.
morning.
Put it up here.
And then, okay, well, and that is the question, when is the best time to weigh?
I always weigh.
When I'm up here, then I've already had breakfast and coffee and run and all that.
Yeah, okay, that's a good example. This morning, I always weigh on Friday mornings before I have anything because I don't want the breakfast. So
you come all the way up here without having had anything, or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so this morning, dropped the kids off, and I came straight here, got on the scale, and then I went and had an omelet.
Okay.
And then I came back, and I actually had to go into the office where the scale is to grab the camera tripod. And I walked by the scale, and I almost got on. Seriously. I just had an omelet and coffee, and I was like, I want to see what that omelet did. No, because I don't even want to see the number.
Yeah.
So...
And because
I didn't get on.
It's about.
I didn't want to weigh the omelet.
It's about consistency of the situation.
Right.
So if you normally have breakfast before you do it, then have breakfast before you do it. If you normally don't, ideal would be as Mac is describing, where you've got probably an 8 to 10 hour fast going into it because you haven't really had anything, and then you get up and then you that's the easiest, most consistent way. But if it's not, if you hadn't mentioned that you beat yourself up about it, then I would say, who cares if you do it every day? But if it's something that you do beat yourself up, at some point, that's when we go, screw it all. And,
Well, that's what I think, is that I should just try not to for a while. Because if, let's say I did it once a week, but then the once a week was that time, when you might have the water retention or whatever, and then it is up. But it's only up because of that and not because I did, you know.
Well, but you're...
So you're going to beat yourself up for a week until you get back on the scale?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hey, I'm just trying to understand. I mean...
And it's just a number.
Well, but it is a number. But I would look at it two different ways. So in Mac's situation, Mac is trying to lose another 100 and some odd pounds here.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to gauge, am I getting closer to where I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to lose X amount of pounds?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you are?
Yeah, I've gained some weight in the past, since last summer, and I just haven't.
Okay, so then that would be a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you were just weighing every day out of compulsion,
No.
just to see where you were, but if you're going towards a goal,
Mm-hmm.
then absolutely. But I would still try to stick within a once a week type situation. And then with women, I try never to have 1 week, what's the continuum? What's the 4 week look like? Are we headed in the direction we're wanting to go? Even if there's some bumps in there, because yes, it may be a water retention deal. You may have had more salt the day before.
Mm-hmm.
All these type of factors play into it. But I would get out of the micro of it on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis to where it kind of beats you down.
Right. Yes, I need to.
But and so Mac, you said even you felt the compulsion to try to jump back on that.
Oh, yeah. Why? I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. Walking right past it going, I wonder how much I gained with that omelet. Huh? So it was 2 or 3 egg omelet,
Mm-hmm.
Bacon and cheese. So
Only time I ever weigh is if I'm at the doctor's. It just never even occurs to me. Now, every morning.
now you weighed a little bit more when the scale was in.
Yeah, because it was there. It was kind of a, hey, see
I
where and what.
You
Yeah.
would jump on when I jumped on. And
Yeah, to have some, just because it was there, but I was never looking for something because I go so much more on eyeball because I don't care what the number says. The number may say something that, I don't have an arbitrary weight that I think I feel good and perform well in. And so whenever I'm getting up in the morning and I'm putting my pants on and if how does my belly look? That's kind of my gauge. Is my belly getting bigger? Are my pants getting tighter? Or is it feeling fine? Is it things fitting better? Am I feeling confident and comfortable? And so I don't have a weight, that hey, I was whatever at this weight. And over the years, I've fluctuated according to how much weight training I may be doing. So if I'm hitting a lot of weights, well, then I may have more muscle mass. So a lean weight may be 10 pounds heavier than what a lean weight for me right now is. So like I said, I've just never really done that because I've done more of the eyeball test.
And maybe your eyeball test isn't distorted like women's tend
Oh, I'm
to be,
sure it
so.
is, but it's just distorted in a different fashion. I mean, I'm kind of going, damn, I'm a sexy beast. I try to start my day that way. Much better than beating yourself up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then lie to yourself.
Your day definitely starts better than mine.
of course, right after that, it's I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Well, actually, that'll be a great segue because I wanted to touch base on a little bit of something that was brought up in the last podcast. We had Leanne Spillon on, who grew up in a family where obesity was the norm, has struggled with it her life. She's made some changes and habits, lost over 90 pounds in the last couple of years. But she made a few comments within there, but a couple that really jumped out at me was she made the comment about when the idea of when she started really trying to push herself when she first started working out probably 13 years ago when she had tried, is the idea that that's not me. And then she made another comment and different variations of it a few different times, but the idea that that's what skinny people say. And it's we all have identities that we have created, that we have put on us, and they're not always something that we have, you don't wake up in the morning, Jen, and say, I'm going to have to go jump on the scale, and then it's going to dictate how I feel about myself. You don't ever have a conscious thought of that, but it's something you do,
Right.
and then it's a piece of the identity that you carry maybe for that day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that we have an identity. We have core identity, kind of the who we are that's been made up over however many years we lived and all the things we've come in contact with. And then we have all these other parts of our identity that kind of be floating around based upon situations, circumstances. I guess one way to look at it is that you may have a mom or dad that their mom or dad at home, maybe their coach when they're out at the soccer field, maybe their teacher in their business or whatever it may be. And within that, they have different parts of that. But I think people do it when it comes to health and fitness, especially if we are overweight or obese and we look at other people and we put identities on them and don't think we can take those identities on ourselves. And I'm, real big, just like I told you guys, I wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror and I say, wow, what a sexy beast. Don't actually say that.
No, you don't.
Not every morning. But I've been training these girls, and this last week we had a situation where they were doing monkey bars. And so they're going back and forth, and I have them flipping around, doing all kinds of different crazy stuff. And there's one girl that's really struggling on it. And so my daughter and some of the others were trying to encourage her. They're saying, go Addison, you got it, you can do this, don't fall.
Don't look down.
So what you
don't look down. Whatever you do, don't look down.
And I was at a athletic practice the other night.
Don't gain weight, whatever you do.
Exactly. I was at an athletic practice the other night, and the coaches were constantly telling them, don't be lazy, don't be lazy. And there's a big school of thought out there that the mind, whenever it continues to hear different emotions or different words or different tags or different identities, it doesn't necessarily differentiate on the subconscious level between one's good or bad or, whether I should accept this or not. It just kind of takes it in and puts it as another brick on the layer. There's a stretch of road in between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. And so if you're driving one way or the other, you will hit a long stretch that's out in the middle of the desert, and there is nothing. Straight as an arrow. Flat. Nothing anywhere except telephone poles or highline wires. That's the only thing on the entire landscape. Now, obviously, I'm sure people are hungover, maybe even drunk or whatever, making that trek on a consistent basis. An inordinate number of people go off the road and hit the telephone poles.
Do you know what that's called?
Go for it.
Fixation, object fixation, or
it's pretty much what it is. It's the idea.
It happens on the motorcycle a lot.
Okay, yeah. So this is something where you
don't hit the tree. Don't hit the tree. Oh crap! There's the tree.
Because subconsciously, even though you're saying don't, subconsciously that's what's getting painted consistently.
Instead of looking past the tree.
And that's what I think what happens a lot of time is that we focus on the weight. I've got to get this weight off. I've got to lose this weight. I can't be fat this summer. I can't keep looking like this. I look fat in this. I feel fat in this. And that is the obsession, and that's all we focus on as opposed to the identity of who we want to be. And I was talking with a couple of coaches last night, actually, and this whole concept that whenever I'm coaching the girls, I don't ever try to tell them they're being lazy. I don't try to tell them, that they're doing something in that fashion. We set an expectation that we're trying to be a championship team. If you're going to be a national championship team, these are the things championship teams must do. Before you can play like a champion, you got to practice like a champion. Before you can practice like a champion, you got to learn to start thinking like a champion. And, everything then rolls back to that. So if someone is being lazy, I try to address it in the situation of we don't do things like this. We don't have lazy habits. We don't do this drill in a lazy manner. It's never the individual I'm calling out as lazy. I'm trying to say we don't do these things because in light of who we are going to become as a champion, that's just not part of us. And I haven't flushed all this out, but I want to spend some time in these upcoming podcasts of being able to bring this back out of how can we then start creating that same idea for someone to live up to. It's what Spartan and Tough Mudder have done a great job with, with the idea of people want to be a Spartan. It's an aspirational ideal. And if we can figure out what that is for us and people who in their journey with the weight loss, of how do we paint that picture, how do they start creating that picture for themselves? And some of you guys that are listening, start paying attention to this. Give us feedback. Because what works for me may not work for you. What works for Mac may not work for you. It's, we've all got our own self-talk going on. How can we start reframing that in a way that gives us an aspiration to where we're going and not constantly just kicking ourselves in the backside for where we are at?
And I do that a lot. I mean,
the kick in the butt.
Yeah. I break myself down pretty good sometimes, and sometimes it takes a little bit more to get out of it than other times.
I think that's our natural default now, though, and I there's not a lot you can read from, say, 200 years ago. Now, if you go back to the Greek philosophers and stuff like that, these type of thoughts are all throughout, the Stoics and everything else. It's also, you find it heavy in the Proverbs and that sort of thing. As a man thinketh, so he is. But it seems to me that seems to be most people's default. It's that we beat ourselves up, but also it's so easy now to compare ourselves. Like when we were growing up, what the evil was all these models and magazines, right? It was it's giving women a bad figure of themselves and Barbie dolls, and well, now it's everywhere, everything. You get online, what you talked about earlier, kids don't have to get together anymore, but everybody's seeing the best vision of themselves, and girls have figured out how to hold the camera at the right angle up above to get their skinny picture. And so it's the idea that we're constantly seeing everybody else as something we are not. So then that reinforces our negative view on ourselves. And it's if we can ever figure out how to flip that to where we can start to take on a different identity, I think then we'd be able to see it start manifesting in other forms or fashions. I mean, at what point? Go ahead.
I tend to look at people not in how they look or like, I'm never looking at someone going, okay, that's the body I want.
Yeah.
But I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do what they're doing there. Now, I know there's some health to that, but I can sometimes get bogged down into, okay, that's really cool. I want to do that. Now let's sit down and watch him for 3 hours, or watch what he's doing. Like a great example the other day, and I didn't even know I was doing it until it was over, and I looked at the YouTube thing, and it was like 40-something minutes. I watched a guy build a log cabin from scratch.
Oh, wow.
And it was a long video, and I didn't even know it. I was just sitting there watching it, and I was like, this is awesome. I'd love to do something like this one of these days. I mean, he cut down the trees, and of course it was a time lapse of almost a year or,
whatever it took to
create it. But, yeah.
Well, I'm going to come back to that, but before I do, I'm afraid I'll ruin my response on what I'm going to ask Jennifer here. It ties in, I promise. She's already getting nervous. So Jen, if say this summer, you go to a pool, and there's 15 girls there that are just smoking hot, amazing bodies.
Where's this pool?
It's in my mind.
Oh, I don't want to go there.
No, you don't. Does that make you feel more self-conscious?
No, not really. I'm not too much of a comparison person.
Okay.
But no, it just depends how I feel.
Okay, so then, and that's fine. That's where what are these situations then, if it's not on a physical situation like that someone else's superiority in something makes you feel self-conscious or feel like you're lacking in certain areas?
What do you mean? What areas?
I mean, I'm just, well, so how I would, like Mac just watched this guy for 40 minutes. Now, it's a fine line, and we all do it, and we may have some of it on both sides. It's that he admires what this guy did, but at the same time, Mac, does it make you feel like less of a man?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I'm going with this. It's more of, because it is a fine line between using something to inspire us to achieve,
right,
and it being the bastard side of it and allowing us to beat ourselves up for something. Or I guess a better word and better phraseology for this is, when are you intimidated by what kind of people are you around that intimidate
that are, like,
you?
really friendly and outgoing.
Okay.
Like, those are the people that I'm jealous of.
Okay, so it's the same thing,
right?
and it's the same mentality, and it's it's always a little bit of wistful, I wish I was more like, and while that can inspire us, it can also beat us down. So that's really the core of everything I'm trying to get at as we start trying to unpack as we go through some of these, the idea of identity, because I haven't found an answer yet. I mean, I scattershoot, I throw things against the wall. Occasionally I stumble across something that someone is able to grab a hold of and it works for them, but oftentimes I haven't been able to find whatever that cue is for them. I.e., going back to Leanne last week, it's that she's made some changes, she's lost a lot of weight, but we even talked about right after the show, Mac, the idea that she hasn't fully embraced the identity of this is who I am and who I'm becoming. And once any of us ever get that, that's when we get there, I've told the story a few times. I don't think I've told it on the podcast how about 10 years ago now we had done the fitness makeover at the city of Dish, and I'd gotten invited down to the governor's office deal with their governor's fitness council, and I'm sitting there with heads of MD Anderson, heads of nutrition from the University of Texas, all these people with 10 times the degrees I have, and I'm 32 years old sitting in there, and I didn't speak up at all, right? And there's probably 15, 20 people in this boardroom in the governor's office.
Yeah.
And at the end, one of the guys turns, Tim, you haven't really said much, and I didn't have anything to say, because who am I to say anything? These people are much smarter than me. These people have much more skins in the wall than I do. So who am I? Is that intimidation? Now I look back and realize that we had physically done something that not a damn person in that room had done. They're all dealing with it in theory. And that's why I'd been invited, because we had accomplished something they had not accomplished. But it's my own identity and who I was compared to them that limited me from being able to speak up. And I'd love to say that, given the same situation, that it would be different, but I'm aware that there's still times that I probably pull back or even shy away if I don't feel comfortable in the situation. And the comfort is not necessarily anything to do with me. It's my perception of me compared to whoever the audience is.
I see it.
And so, but I think it plays out in more areas of our life than we are fully aware, but I've seen it for years, particularly when it comes to weight loss.
Yeah, we can dive into this a little bit later on, but when I lost the weight, what did my identity become? My identity became going out and doing things and getting it done and having adventures and working my tail off. That's kind of what I think my identity became. And it became so tiring for me that I needed to stop and needed to rest, and that got me in trouble. So that's oversimplification.
Well, but on that, because I was gonna ask you, when do you think your identity became to where I'm doing the Baja? I'm a badass that gets on a motorcycle and rides to the desert in the middle of the night in Mexico. I mean, at what point in your weight loss journey? Because the identity, you took it on before you actually did the event.
It was way at the beginning.
Okay.
It was, I guess it was, I don't know. Well, I'll have to look.
But then your identity was not a fat guy losing weight. You happened to be a fat guy losing weight because you were a badass rider in the Baja, 1000.
It was 3 years before the race.
But that's the difference, and that's the thing, and that's, I know we've talked about it in the past, and probably worth delving into at some point in the future. It's that a lot of my perspective on, it wasn't. I don't think that it was that, okay, I've had this effort. I need to catch my breath. It's that you didn't have anything to inspire you to keep that effort, because you had gone and been a part of what you had been focusing on for 3 years, and you didn't have something else to inspire you to continue the action.
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
And there's a lot of people, and you'll hear it every once in a while, that we don't suffer from lack of motivation. We suffer from lack of inspiration. That if we're not inspired by anything, then we're not motivated. If we're inspired to do something, then man, we have motivation like crazy. And so that's also something of part of the identity of trying to people to lose weight. just quit making the weight loss the goal. The weight loss is a goal as you're going towards something.
And that just makes me tired thinking about it. Having to find having to find an inspiration after you finish something you want to do, and finding the next inspiration and the next inspiration. So that's why I'm trying to do it differently.
No, and it is. It's and
I can't be. I mean, yes, I guess there's guys that are old guys out there working out 3 hours a day, eating, 1,400 calories a day or whatever. But, and that's some of what now that wasn't all the time, but I worked out and calorie cut back a lot to lose that first 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I gained it back, I got to figure out a way to do it and maintain it without the 3 hour workout a day.
He's getting exhausted.
Yes, I'm getting exhausted thinking about it.
We need a calorie counter on him.
I'm not looking to get the lazy way out. I'm looking to get a maintainable solution.
No, and I know what you're saying, because I'll deal with it on a different perspective. So if we go back to that same basic time period, about the time you were falling off the wagon and I'm jumping full throttle on the wagon, it was because we had something new. We were starting the South Padre Marathon.
Yeah.
And boom, that energized me, that invigorated me. We were told, no, we can't do X, Y, and Z on so many different levels, and we continued to just bust through walls. We created something brand new, had 2,700 people at the very first event. And then I didn't pull completely back, but I kind of breathed a little bit. I didn't have the same motivation to fight those same battles. By the third year, whenever I'm still fighting the same battles that I did the first time, I didn't have the same zeal. I didn't have the same inspiration to do it. And then by this last year, it's like, well, enough with you guys. But yes, so I mean, it's the same thing that plays out. So now my energy is all in this creation of the Jailbreak Ranch and creating a year-round training area. And but I'm struggling with the same thing, because I go through phases of bam, I've got endless energy, just endless energy whenever I am all for something. And then all of a sudden it's like I can't get the motivation to do anything when I'm focusing on what I have already done. Well, then I deserve some rest. I deserve to be able to breathe. I wish I was motivated by money. I really wish I was, because that's like an endless thing. Yeah. I mean, you see those that are like hyper motivated by money, that they constantly are able to keep going because it's never enough. So it's always something more. It's the same thing. If you had that same motivation just for being healthy, if I had that same motivation year round, constantly, and inspiration for my passions, well, then we would be able to be sustained. Now, I do believe that,
maybe I can create that. Maybe, we'll dive into that. Maybe I can create that that attitude that always stays with me and I hope to do that, because once I get to where I am, I need to stay there, and I need to.
And that's something that I'm obsessed with, the idea of physiological hacks that help with that. So I've been doing some really cold morning showers.
Isn't that kind of the 4 tendency rebel personality?
Well, I think
what
y'all
are both saying right now.
Absolutely, probably so. Yes,
because you're not motivated by like me. I'm just motivated to just do to do it because that's to do it.
And she's just referencing the book.
She's the upholder.
We need to give the credit
because I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. Whether I. That's the motivation. So
who wrote that book?
It was Gretchen something. But yes, the 4 tendencies, and but no, I mean, and that's the other side of this, is that identity is going to be different, and how we interpret it, and how what it takes for you to get going. Of I said I'm doing this, so how come you Peckerwoods can't do this? And we don't really like you anyway. But
but I'm probably lacking some passion or whatever that y'all get out of things. I don't know.
Well, no, but I do think that it is more of a roller coaster ride, probably for Mac and I. I know it is for me. Okay, and it's intentional and effort to try to keep the roller coaster up at a certain level. But I think that the highs can be insanely high and have been insanely high.
What's weird is my personality isn't a roller coaster like yours.
So the little bubble over his head says, "I'm not effed up as bad as you."
No, but we seem to have the same kind of when it comes to, what we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess if you just look at my hobbies,
Mm-hmm.
I go in and out of hobbies a lot, in and out of this or that. So, but my personality is doesn't swoop up and down like yours.
But it's the trying to transition from the passion on the interest of these things to where it automatically sets off a cue, and that's something we do need to bring up. We need to get the book. I've got it over there on the shelf, The Power of Habit, and it talks about the habit loop and how the cue then sets into action, and you have to really create that link to begin with so that then it goes ahead and starts creating the cycle. So the idea of I'm going to watch 40 minutes of this guy building this log cabin from scratch then would be a cue to you, even if it's just getting out and cleaning the garage or doing something physical.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens. It does.
Yeah. But it's setting these things to where they become automatic cues. I know I listened to someone on the Spartan podcast.
Hey, I got a little hatchet.
You got a hatchet now. Yeah.
I didn't even put those two together.
But now you got to go chop something down.
Yeah,
Go chop a neighbor's tree down or something. But, I listened to a Spartan podcast last year, and one of the guys on there who had lost a lot of weight, his deal was every morning, as soon as he gets out of bed, very first thing he does is puts on his shoes. Because if he already has his running shoes on, it's easier for him to go ahead and go outside and exercise. And so that's his cue that then sets off the habit. And so as we are, delving into it, especially once we get more into the identity, I think that's where we need to look into is how do we set these cues?
I'll hack my brain all day. Let's play with it.
How do we set these cues so then it gets the desired outcome? And you know what? I just thought of this, but I think this may have been where we've struggled over this last year. Is we've focused a lot on all the obstacles and we've focused a lot on the things that we all have to overcome. And I don't think we've spent enough time focusing on how do we create the environment, the situation, the circumstances, the mindset to get there. And so I think that would definitely, as we're moving forward on this next year, be a direction to go. So, Mac, it is a Friday, so you had a weigh-in?
Got 4 pounds. Went from 398 to 394.
Now, just so everybody knows, yesterday we was texting, setting up the time to get together and do the show, and I made the observation via text to Mac and Jennifer that nobody had seen Mac this week, Jennifer. I'd even asked some of my staff, they seen him. I just missed him. And so you were a little under the weather?
Oh, yeah. I was feeling terrible earlier in the week, but I stayed on my track eating-wise, so I guess that's...
So the 4-pound flu diet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, something to look into. I guess thousands across the country should have been losing, some weight this winter, if that's the case. So you said you stayed on track. So just like didn't go off the rails on anything eating, but I'm assuming activity level was probably...
Activity level was low, but the eating was good.
Okay. And so, but now you're all healthy. You don't have to have the Michael Jackson or SARS mask or anything?
No, I didn't wear my gas mask.
Okay. Now, last week, as soon as we got off, you had also set a goal, a short-term goal that you're wanting to hit by the end of March.
Yeah.
And so by 3:30, and you said your goal was going to be, and we set this last week when you weighed in at 398. And so it was 30 pounds, and at that time it would have been over the 7 weeks. And so that would have been just, about 4.2-something pounds, 4.3 pounds per week. You've got your 4 pounds this week on a week where you're kind of hamstrung. So you're heading in the right direction. And 368 would be interesting to see. I guess maybe by next show, look up and see when it was last time you were 368.
Okay. I might not have that.
Well, I'm wondering.
That might have been Blackout.
Well, you chronicled a lot of that on your Facebook, so you might be able to. It might be interesting to see, like when it was, and if you have any other posts about were you doing anything, Because I want to say, Jennifer, whenever he did the jailbreak, weren't you at like 360-ish?
Yeah.
So that was somewhere in that neighborhood. So I would assume it had been in the September of whatever that year was, and so. But it'd be interesting to see what kind of activities you were doing around there, and then for you to be able to self-compare of, okay, am I engaging in some of those things, or am I doing more than what I was able to do at that point?
Yeah. We'll look into that.
All right, so for next week, we'll dive a little more into identity, so setting some cues. And
yeah, I want to get in on that too.
On setting some habit cues.
Heck yeah.
Cold showers. You want to not feel like a man, Mac? Step out and look in the mirror after a cold shower. Just saying.
Hey, this is a family show.
Yes. I may need to borrow your hatchet just so I can feel manly. Want to thank everyone. Step out of the shower with a hatchet. By golly. Want to thank everybody for joining us. If you'd like to follow Mac's story a little more closely, go to Facebook, Relentless Road, his Facebook page. Give him some feedback. Go to iTunes, Relentless Road. Hit subscribe. Share this with your friends and family. Give us some feedback. If you got some ideas, something you would like to hear us cover on the show, by all means, reach out to us. We hope today that we have inspired you as you continue to inspire us.